Hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me on this webinar. So today we're going to talk about WordPress and using WordPress specifically for your business or for your online store. A little bit about me. Ricky is my name. I work for Business Station as a digital business advisor. WordPress, WooCommerce would be one of my areas of specialty. What else can I tell you? If you have any questions about today, while I'm going through this webinar, please maybe just use the chat function in Zoom and throw your question in there, and I'll try and get to that as we go through the presentation. So let's just quickly have a look at what we're going to talk about today. So firstly, I'm going to define what WordPress is. Not define it, but really talk about there's two different versions. So I'm going to talk about the two different versions. And then we'll talk about what it can be used for, because it's very, very flexible. And we'll talk about the different ways you can use WordPress. What you need to get started and to be successful, including things like themes and different page builders and different plugins. We'll briefly touch on e-commerce and then talk about ways you can promote your site, including SEO. And that'll be probably enough to squeeze into 1 hour. So I will provide a link at the end where you can get some additional, access some of these things that I talk about in this webinar. Okay, so let's talk about WordPress itself. So WordPress is actually owned by an organization called Automattic. It's a pretty cool organization. A little bit like how Meta owns Facebook, Automattic owns WordPress. Their foundation product is WordPress.com. So if you ever visit WordPress.com, you'll find it's a hosted platform. They host the website for you. There's a free version you can use, but it has ads and it has quite limited functionality. So you wouldn't use that, for example, for an e-commerce store, but you might use it for a blog, for example. Then there's WordPress.org, and WordPress.org is really a not-for-profit foundation under Automattic. It's open source, so it's available for anyone to develop themes and plugins and that sort of thing for WordPress, which is one of its strengths. It's free to use. It's not free because you still need to host it somewhere. And unless you're going to host it, in your own house, which is unlikely and not recommended, it is going to cost you some money to host that, otherwise known as self-hosted, versus say Shopify or Wix, Squarespace, they host it for you. Now, one of the main benefits of WordPress is it's completely flexible. You can do anything you want virtually on a WordPress website. And I'll repeat myself there, it's free to use. So there are two sides to WordPress. And I'll just very briefly show you the WordPress.com side. So I've got some pre-recorded screen recordings here. It's well worth maybe having a look and seeing if it's what you're really looking to do. But like I said, it's it will probably develop into a platform that might be useful down the track, but at this point it's probably quite limited. So they have templates and that sort of thing. So that's WordPress.com. But really what we're talking about is WordPress.org, which is this particular website here. If you ever go there, it's probably worthwhile because there's lots of things on here. So I'll quickly show you around. So it's, as I said before, it's open source, which is one of its strengths, which means there's developers out there developing themes and plugins specific to your industry or needs, for example. So it's very, very good from that regard. Because it's open source too, you'll find that there's often a lot of people out there that understand a little bit about WordPress. There's communities out there, whether it's in Australia or in your state or in your city, or people that understand, they might be WordPress designers or whatever the case in your local town. So to get WordPress, you can just download it from here. It's free. But normally if you're hosting with an organization, a hosting provider, they'll provide you the ability to just install WordPress from the hosting site. Okay, so that's WordPress.org. And as you can see at the top there, there's a whole range of things along the lines of themes and plugins that are available for you to use. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So what can you use WordPress for? Well, like I said before, it's really very, very flexible. It powers a lot of the world's websites. So because of that, if you're looking at any sort of business website, many e-commerce websites, blogs, educational websites, events, real estate, tourism, often lots of these are actually WordPress websites. So it powers 41% of the top 1 million websites, and it powers 28% of the top 1 million e-commerce websites. And every day there's heaps of WordPress websites being developed, more than 500 every day, versus, you know, something in the order of 60, 80, 280 for Shopify or Squarespace. So you get a feel for how broadly WordPress is used. And it's not just used for small organizations. Some of the world's biggest organizations use WordPress. So it is quite scalable. It really depends on your server and the way that's configured and where you're hosting it. So BBC, New York Times, Disney, for example, use WordPress. And one of its main benefits is that it's a content management system. So what that means really is that it's good at managing different types of content, whether it's text or images or video products, any type of products, physical, virtual products, or some sort of custom type content that you can do. It might be a ticket, for example, or it could be a menu item. So it's very flexible in terms of what sort of content you can use on a WordPress website. Okay, so what do you need to get a WordPress website up and running? Well, there's a few key ingredients, and we'll just go through those. So the first, of course, well, you don't strictly need a domain name because you can use a temporary WordPress domain name. But generally speaking, when you want to go to market, you want to promote your brand, then you should have your own domain name. And that's not difficult to do, of course. You just go to a registrar. I've got GoDaddy as an example up here, and you can you can grab I think at the moment they're $9.95 for the first year. Of course, that's just a promotional price. It goes up in the second year to about $21, $22. So, you know, it's not expensive to grab your domain name and protect that brand. The second thing then you need is somewhere to host your WordPress website. Now, you know, there's lots of factors that you need to take into account, and we'll talk about some of those and some of the available options for you. The third thing, and this is very important and not specific to WordPress, but it's more important with WordPress simply because of the fact that it is open source and you're using lots of different bits and pieces like themes, page builders, maybe plugins, and that sort of thing. So, you know, security becomes a really important thing, and that includes things like strong passwords and SSL, and we'll talk briefly about that as well. And you need to do backups and updates. So they're two different things. You need to do backups to back your site up in case there's a disaster, and that disaster could, you know, befall any sort of website. There could be a fire in the hosting platform, for example. So security, I'll go through some of the security in a second, but there are some specific security plugins I recommend. So just answering Wendy's question there are some specific, you know, WordFence, for example, is one of those, but there's a couple of others. So I do recommend definitely that you use a security plugin, but not just that, you make sure that particularly for your admins, because they're the ones with the power, you need to make sure that they've got strong passwords, but also potentially two-factor authentication. You might not want to use two-factor authentication for every user, but especially for your admin users, for example, but just enforce strong passwords for all of your users. But we can talk about some of these things as we go through, but updates is also an important part of security, because you've got, you know, XYZ company over here developing this plugin that you're using, as WordPress themselves with the core of WordPress that needs updating. And the reason it needs updating, by the way, is not just to add functionality, but it's to fix security holes, essentially. So that's why it's important to keep everything updated, because they're patches that are fixing known security exposures, essentially. So you need to do updates on a regular basis, and that's really easy. You can actually automate that, but it's just something you need to keep in mind. And then, of course, it's a theme-based platform, so you need a template, if you like. In WordPress, world that's called a theme. So you need a theme, and then depending on whether you're going to maintain this yourself or you're going to just get a web developer to do this for you. If you're going to do it yourself, then maybe it's worthwhile, and most of these themes have them nowadays, is a page builder. And there's different types of page builders that allow you to drag and drop sections onto your website so you can have it looking exactly how you want. And, there's Elementor, for example, there's Divi, there's Beaver Builder, there's a whole bunch of different page builders. And they're sort of specific to the theme you're using usually, not always, but usually. And then of course you need plugins. So, this is a fine balance here, because you only want to use the plugins that you need, but there are some certain plugins that you should be using. Plugins will, one, you'll need to keep them updated and that sort of thing, but two, the more you have, the slower your site's going to go. So, but you definitely will need some. So for example, security is one of them, but you might want one for SEO. If you're doing e-commerce, you'll need the WooCommerce plugin, etc. But plugins are really the strength of WordPress. That's what makes it so flexible and so powerful and cost effective, because even though it might cost you the same to host a WordPress website as, say, a Shopify site, you also will need apps on Shopify, and as you would with WordPress, we call them plugins, but most WordPress ones are free in most cases. So you're not paying for that every month or every year. Okay, so that's what you need. So let's look at some of the WordPress hosting options and some of the things you need to consider. So performance is key, because, the less you're going to pay for hosting, probably the less performance you're going to get. So they're going to share your site with lots of other sites so they can get their return on their investment. So if it's a $5 a month plan, you're going to sort of get that sort of performance. So really consider that. The second thing you also want to think about is the server that you're on. Now, for example, if you're just starting off, then most likely a shared server is going to be fine. But you could also use cloud-based hosting, which is essentially the same, but a little bit better performance. You could use a virtual private server to give you a bit more performance. And then at the top level, you've got a dedicated server. So for most people, you're just going to start off with a shared environment or a cloud-based environment. So what you then need to think about is, what services do they offer? What sort of reviews have they gotten? What do they do as part of that monthly fee? Because like I said before, there is a few things you need to do. And if these guys can take care of some of those things for you, it's just going to lessen the load. So we'll talk about that briefly in a second. Server location, you might want to consider that. So for example, if all of your customers are in Australia, then it might make sense, but it's not necessary, but it might make sense to host in Australia. You could also host in the US, and most people wouldn't even know the difference. The difference does get to if you, for example, have a global audience, and say, for example, you have clients in Europe and you're hosting in Australia, then they might notice that performance issue, because they're going, to the other side of the world and back just to access your website. So it is a consideration there. So sometimes you might want to consider hosting, say, in the US, where it's sort of accessible to all parts of the world. And whereas sometimes you might want to just host in Australia because your audience is here. So that may or may not be important to you. And then other things you might want to think about is email. So when you purchase the email host, the WordPress hosting, does it include email, so you can use your domain, your email, custom email as part of that? And all of these will offer email as an add-on. Sorry, I was just going to show you some of those. I've just got some screen recordings of some of them. So that's Ventra IP, is an Australian organization. They do all the things I've mentioned there. So web hosting, email. Normally within web hosting, they'll have different types, but if you look for, say, WordPress hosting, they'll give you some ideas of what they do and some of the reviews there and some of the costings. So if I just scroll down a little bit. So often they'll put up a promotional price, so $8, you go, wow, that's really cheap, but it's actually $16 a month. So you just need to think about that. That's usually just the first month's price. And there's some of the things they do. So they do a backup for you. They provide an SSL certificate. They're providing you good performance there, and some other things they do. So updates automatically for you So pretty good, really. So that's one option to consider. But there's plenty out there. So Cloudways is a global organization, but they offer the ability to host your site wherever you like. So you can host one, you can have a server in, say, Australia and a server in another part of the world for a different website, for example, depending on what you do. This is more maybe applicable to someone like myself that builds websites for people. So I actually tend to use Cloudways quite a lot. And you can choose different platforms that you want to use, whether it's a Google server or a DigitalOcean server, sort of getting into a little bit of technicality there. They're a cloud-based server. And a cloud-based server is pretty much the muchness as it's the same as any other sort of hosting, but just different ways to manage it. And as you can see, $12, that's US a month. And it's a basic one there, $26 a month US for a little bit more expensive, depending on your server. And it will tell you everything that they do. So just a couple more I'll just quickly show you. So Siteground is often one that's bandied around when people ask about WordPress hosting. So they do WordPress hosting. I think they offer the ability to host in Australia as well, if that's important to you. Some offer WooCommerce specific hosting. From my perspective, they're pretty much the same, although WooCommerce, you might need to have a little bit more power grunt, if you like, performance. Anyway, I'll just trying to get to the pricing here. Let's view the plans. Sometimes with these screen recordings, you don't realize how slow they are until you're actually watching them back. So I apologize for that. So there you go, $5.99 a month, but it's actually $19.99 a month. So, one website, 10 gig, that's plenty of storage. You're not going to be worried about that. It's really the additional things they do for you. So they can install it for you, migrate it from another server. They do backups, free content delivery network, etc., enhanced security. So that's pretty good. Then there's like WP Engine. They're like the Rolls Royce of WordPress hosting. Very, very good. WP Engine. I don't think they give you the ability to locate where you're going to host. I think it's in one location, which I think is in the US. And very good reputation. I just want to get to some pricing here just to give you some sort of comparison. They do everything for you. Security, support, different tools. And there you go. So $34.50 a month. Remember, you're talking about the Rolls Royce. So it's it's at that end of the spectrum. So you're not going to be worried about doing anything there in terms of, not having a high performing site or not getting the service that you want. And just at the other end, I guess, is GoDaddy. I tend to use GoDaddy for my domain registration, but if you want to, they also do WordPress hosting. Similar sort of features that they offer. And there's some pricing there. So basic $9.96, that's yearly. That's a yearly price. You'd have to go and have a look at that yourself, but includes a free domain, business email. So actually it's not a bad deal. They do backup, malware scans, all those sorts of things. Micron 21. Thank you, Wendy. I haven't heard of Micron 21, but there are a lot of organizations out there. It's really just whether you're happy with them. That's the main thing. And you're getting, traffic to your website and a few other things that are important. Okay, so that's basically what you need. Now I'm going to talk about some of the plugins that you might want to consider using. So what plugins do basically is they add or extend the functionality of your website. And, you're not necessarily going to install them from here, although you can download them and then upload them to your website. Normally you do this from the back end, from your admin menu, and you can install the plugins directly. But I just want to show you the same ones will be available on your website. Some of the ones that are available here. I recommend going to popular plugins. because most of these ones are very, very good and probably ones that you might want to use. So for example, there's a great Yoast. I'm just going to pause that. Yoast, you can see 27,000 5-star reviews, 5 million installations. So you know that it's probably doing a pretty good job. So Yoast for your SEO, for example, if you're using a website that's compatible with Elementor, probably the Elementor web page builder is a great page builder. I recommend that, and works very, very well. If you want to sell products online, then WooCommerce is the e-commerce platform that's owned by WordPress. You don't have to necessarily use that one, but I think it does such a good job. Here's some security ones. So we will talk a bit more about these. WordFence is a great one just to stop people trying to, find your password and that sort of thing, or that, we'll talk further about that. But WordFence, there's forms, backups. So Updraft is a WordPress backup plugin. Now, these are all free. You don't have to pay for anything here. If you want to get some analytics, how your analytics are going, you can actually have a dashboard on your dashboard, your WordPress dashboard. To improve the performance of your website, it's good to use a cache. There was Lightspeed cache there. There are other caches available. So you just use some of these and they add that extra functionality that would either cost you potentially hundreds of dollars a month on other platforms or just not be available, to be frank. Okay, so plugins are really important. And like I said, so there's a bunch of them for, depending on what you need. So SEO, security, performance, you can use it to integrate your social channels. So in terms of your Facebook shop or even Google for Google shopping, that sort of thing. And they, like I said, they are all free, but if there isn't one that's not available as a free version, there are also premium versions available through other platforms, not through WordPress itself. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how you would do that. So if you haven't seen a WordPress dashboard before, this is what it looks like. And if you go down, there's posts, pages, products, plugins there. And if you click on plugins, you can look at which ones you have installed, or you can add a new plugin. So I'm just going to click add new. And as you can see, the same sort of plugins show up, but you can tab between these are favorites, but not my favorites, just generally speaking favorites or featured, sorry. And then there's popular, recommended, or favorites. So I would recommend going to popular like I did before and maybe just activating some of these. So the way you would do that is just go to the one that you want to install. You can see I've got a lot of these installed or activated already. So I'll choose the one that I want to install if I can find one here. So I'm just going to, so this is a plugin that allows you to duplicate pages and posts and products. So I'm just going to install that one. So you can see it just does it from the dashboard. And once it's installed, it will ask if you want to activate that, and you just click activate. And then that would be a feature that's available on your particular website. And you could find that either from the dashboard, or in this case, if I went to my pages, I'd be able to duplicate the individual pages. Yeah, so yeah, Wendy was just, if you're not seeing that, so Wendy was saying that the price in US is often in US dollars, yes. So if you, yeah, like I said, some of the features are free and some of them you'll need to upgrade. I find for most cases though, so let's talk about security, that most of the free ones will do the job for you. But why is security important? I've sort of touched on it already, but let me just give you some statistics. So there are about 90,000 attacks per minute on WordPress websites. That's not just to say that WordPress websites are the only websites being attacked, but this is a known figure. And 50% of known vulnerabilities, in other words, what these attackers are looking for, are from plugins, the things that we just spoke about. So how do you overcome that? Well, firstly, I'll just show you a graph. So this is a graph that shows you how WordPress websites are hacked, essentially. So as you can see, more than 50% of those are through plugins. About 15% are from brute force attacks. So this is where they're trying to just guess your password, essentially. The core, so this is WordPress itself, has some known vulnerability, a theme that you're using, the hosting provider itself, file permissions where you've given someone the wrong permissions, for example, all sorts of things, password theft, phishing, etc. So really it's important to focus on really strong passwords, keeping your site updated in terms of plugins, the core and themes. And in most cases, if you've got a secure website hosting, you're going to be fine. You're going to be as secure as any site. So like I said before, there are those things I mentioned that you do need to keep in mind. Now, most of these can actually be done through the use of a plugin. Not necessarily all of them, but some of them can be. So we'll talk about those in a second. The reason why I do harp on about security is because it's taken into account when search engines, for example, are ranking you. So not only security, but performance is also important. So you need to make sure, because you're hosting on a website hosting platform and it's shared, you need to make sure that your site is optimized for performance. So you might not need to have to do that as much on other platforms. So security, important. You need to make sure you've got your SSL, which most hosting platforms will provide free of charge. You can use things like trust seals that, you can often get these now through hosting providers or through e-commerce providers. And you need to keep your updates organized and your hosting organized. Performance is often, not always, it's often about just the fact that you've got too large images on your site. So it might be the slider images, often the images that people have to load when they're loading your site. So really it's important to think about that. And one way to test performance is using a tool called GTmetrix. You can go to GTmetrix and it'll give you a bit of an idea of how fast or slow your site is. It'll rate you A to F and it will tell you what images are slowing your site down. And what you need to then do is find those images and find a tool like TinyJPEG, and you can go to TinyJPEG and just compress them, make them smaller. They'll still look the same, but they'll just won't weigh as much. They won't be as many kilobytes. So you really need your images to be below 100 kilobytes, ideally, if you can. And that's for large images. We're talking maybe 60 kilobytes for a medium-sized image and maybe a 30 kilobyte for a small image or less. So let's look at some of these security plugins. So all I've done is I've gone to the plugins page. I'm just going to pause there and I searched for security. So there's a few things here. I would definitely not install anything that has less than maybe 4.5 stars. So Jetpack is a WordPress application. They'll often push this onto new providers, but you can see it only gets 4 stars. I wouldn't use that. But something like WordFence, for example, or many of these other ones, I'm not familiar with all of them, but I'm definitely familiar with WordFence. When I say familiar, I haven't used them myself or on other sites. So there's a few other ones. Security is very good. iTheme Security is one of my favorites, and it really does lock down your site. So any of those, or WP Server, the one below that, they're all very, very good security applications. iTheme Security starts off by asking you what type of site you are, and then it just configures it with one click to do all of it. Really locks your site down. But you really only just want one security plugin. So whether it's WordFence or Security or this one, yeah, have a look and see what you think is the best for your particular site. You can also use other applications. So there's, I don't want to sort of get too complicated here, but if you use Cloud, you do get a copy of this to watch back. So everyone should get an invite, a link sent to their email after this that you can watch. There's just another thing you might want to consider. You can use it in conjunction with your security plugin, and that's using a content delivery network like Cloudflare. Cloudflare is free. You can use that and they'll deliver content closer to where the user is. So that's good if you've got a global network of users, but it also helps in reducing security exposures. So that's Cloudflare. You might want to have a look at them, but I would do all of these things first and then maybe set that up secondarily. So yeah, that's your security plugins. Now I just want to talk about performance plugins. And performance, what I'm really talking about are cache plugins. So just search for cache and you'll be displayed with a list of caches that, once again, the same thing applies. How many installations, how many stars. Most of these are quite good. Two I would recommend is WP Fastest Cache or WP Super Cache, Lightspeed Cache. Any of those three are very, very good. And what they'll do is make your site faster to the end user. But if you've got very large, if it's super slow already, it's not going to make much difference. So you really need to do this once you've made sure that you've done that performance test and made sure you don't have any huge images that are slowing everything down, or a big slideshow that's slowing, or a huge video, for example. So that's useful to do once you've taken care of all those other things. Definitely makes a difference. So performance plugins. Now, what I'm going to do is just ask if you've got any questions. Please feel free to ask those. Like Wendy has been, just while we go along is great. And then what I'll do is keep going, because otherwise I'll probably run out of time, to be honest. So what I'm going to talk about now is just the different themes and page builders that are available for you to use. Now, what does a theme do? It basically provides the website structure, how the website looks, if you like. But you're able to change that to suit your particular brand, you know, your colors, your fonts, your logos, images, content, and also your layout, how you want it to look. So the theme is a very important part, and there's different types of themes. There's generic sort of themes, there's industry sort of specific themes that are developed for a particular use, or there's all-in-one type themes like, say, Divi, which provides one platform, but you can install pre-built sites for particular industries. So a cafe or a restaurant or a bike shop, for example. And they also have their own page builder as well. And once again, there's free themes, there's freemium themes, and there's premium themes. So if you ever go to WordPress and see what's available, what we're talking about here are free themes that may offer a freemium option. In most cases, I find that the free themes in most cases are perfectly good enough. They may not have maybe some of the bells and whistles like, say, pre-built demos. Most of them do, though, actually. So just try and show you here. If I go to themes, now I'll scroll down. I'll just pause for a second. Whoops. I messed that up. Yeah, so what I was going to show you is that just in the first two rows there's WP Astra, or it's called Astra. There's Ocean WP. There's also Hello Elementor. Just those three alone are very good platforms for you to start building. I would recommend using a page builder like Elementor, and you can really build anything you want for free. You don't need to potentially might not need a website builder, but you wouldn't need any other sort of specialist functionality. Sorry, I keep repeating but basically that's Astra. Astra is a very good website. It might look boring to start with, but that's then you just start to configure it the way you need to configure it. So that's basically, you know, the free themes. There's lots of free themes. Alternatively, you might decide that you want a premium theme. And maybe this would be best if you're starting off. So to choose what sort of premium theme you want, I would recommend going to Envato Market. Otherwise, they have different markets. And the one for WordPress websites is called Theme Forest. So if you just search for Theme Forest, it's actually an Australian organization. and they provide a marketplace for WordPress websites, website themes and plugins, but mostly themes. So you can have a look at the different themes that you might want to use. And what we're talking about here are the #1 themes in the WordPress marketplace. So Avada, the 7B theme, for example, you can see they're not expensive, $60. This is US dollars, I believe, $39, $59. But we're talking, very good functionality. I would probably have a look at these. Flatsum is one of the best e-commerce ones you can use. There's also Divi. Divi isn't on here. It's one of the top selling websites. You need to go to their own website. I think if you go to divi.com, you'll find information on Divi. In fact, I think I might have a page. I have a page on that next. So there's Theme Forest to find premium themes, and you can have a look at previews, see what they look like. And then there's Divi, like I was saying before. So I'll show you this because it's very popular. And it comes with its own page builder and lots of pre-built demos. So you can just pre-install one of these pre-built demos and it's ready to go. You just customize it around your particular content, like I was saying. So very, very good. And sorry, off the top of my head, I don't know the price. You'd need to have a look, but it would be somewhere in the order of what those other ones were, something like $60 or so. So that's Divi. So there are different themes and different page builders. Oh, there you go. So $89 a year, or you can pay $250 once off and you get lifetime updates, plus a bunch of other things as well. So you're not just Divi. Okay, hopefully that gave you a bit of an, and there's some of the pre-built layouts that I was talking about. So restaurant, coffee shop, fashion store, and they give you all of the pages. So the contact us, the about us, the shop pages, etc., etc. So just something that you might want to consider. Most of them do give you these pre-built demos, by the way. So the shop page, etc. Okay, so just going to push on. I'm running a bit short on time here. So that's themes and page builders. There are different page builders as well. I've sort of mentioned them. I won't go into too much detail here. There's Elementor, which is the very popular page builder, allows you to build your own. Basically, I'll show you. This is an example of page builder of Elementor. So as you can see, as you hover over sections, you can either edit them or you can just drag an element onto the page where you want that particular element. Just find whatever, just showing you the elements available. So you can put any of these in wherever you want on that particular page. And you can also, they have whole templates for different sections of the pages. So you can add a new template. I'm just going to flick through this. Here's some of their pre-built templates. And they also have starter sites like this as well. Some of them, as you can see, you need a pro account. So that's Elementor Pro. So that's the free versus premium version, but you also get free versions as well. So that's Elementor. There's also other ones around as well, such as Divi have their own page builder, or there's Beaver Builder. There's a bunch of other ones as well. There's also the one that's built into WordPress itself, which is the blocks, basically. Okay, so let's talk about e-commerce on WordPress. E-commerce on WordPress, normally when you're talking about that, we're talking about WooCommerce. So WooCommerce was originally a South African organization based in Cape Town, and they developed this platform very early on in the piece, and it was the leading platform that WordPress websites used, and eventually a few years ago they were bought by WordPress and are now a part of the WordPress organization. It's a very powerful platform. and it is the market leader in terms of e-commerce. It's great for every single type of product that you have. So whether that's, whether you're selling retail, wholesale, or a combination of both of those, whether you have marketplaces where you might have different stall holders that people might want to purchase from, for example, whether you have physical products, virtual products, it really doesn't matter. Simple versus variable, so, different sizes or colors. So WooCommerce is very, very flexible, and it really does, like it says here, it allows you to build exactly the sort of e-commerce website that you want to build. It's very flexible and customizable. Now, most themes that you use will have the ability just to add WooCommerce to that particular theme. So it's very, very easy to do. If you're interested in WooCommerce, have a look around this platform. It gives you a lot of different information. There are lots of add-ons you can add to WooCommerce. So like subscriptions, for example, or memberships. And there are different versions of those. So there are ones that WooCommerce make themselves. So there's a WooCommerce memberships, there's a WooCommerce subscriptions, for example, for if you've got subscription type products, but there are also other versions available through WordPress. Some of them are free and some of them are premium. So you can add different functionality. Like I said, it might be shipping or social media. And there is an app version of WooCommerce. So let's just have a look at some of the themes that you might want to use for e-commerce. So all I did here was, this was a list from WP Forms, the best WooCommerce themes. I thought it was quite apt. So the first one is Astra. That's the free theme I told you about. So you use Astra, which is free, Elementor as your page builder, and WooCommerce as your online store. You've got a pretty powerful solution there. Neve, once again, it's also a free theme. You get that off WordPress. Ocean WP, it's another free theme. Some of them come with starter templates, like I say. Very, very good themes. And then you've got Divi, which is a premium theme. Comes with the Divi builder. Very good for WooCommerce. They come with a whole bunch of pre-built layouts for WooCommerce. So it might be something you might want to consider. And then there's a bunch of others that from here I probably don't necessarily recommend or agree as such, but those top 4 or 5 definitely. So there's a lot of different website themes out there that you can use. And like I said, it's perfect for any type of product, but it's not the only platform that you can use for WooCommerce. You can use, there's one called Easy Digital Downloads. If you have just digital downloadable type products, you might want to just have a look at that. WordPress is also supported by BigCommerce. So you can have a WordPress website, but a BigCommerce e-commerce site. So you'd need both platforms operational there. And then there's different plugins like, applications like ECWid or eQuid, which is the e-commerce widget plugin. If you look for eQuid, you might be able to find that, and you can run e-commerce stores on websites, but also on Facebook and other platforms. So I'm sort of running out of time, so I'm just going to briefly run through these. These are some of the extensions I spoke about. These are the ones that WooCommerce build themselves. Because of that, they give the WooCommerce away, but they sell the extensions. But they're really powerful. And if you need something like this, then you really can't go wrong. Well, the first thing they offer is WooCommerce payments. So you can take payments using WooCommerce. It's based on Stripe. The rates are very good, and you can offer all the credit cards, but as well as that, you can offer Apple Pay and other cards. Don't necessarily recommend Jetpack, so I'm just going to scroll through that one. You can offer different types of pricing offerings. So you can have product add-ons. So when people are purchasing a product, they might want to add something onto that purchase, or they might want to bundle a configuration together, like this camera bundle, for example. So that's product add-ons or product bundles. There are a couple of other ones. I'm just going to show you more really composite products. And this is where they might need to build their own product. So in this particular scenario, it's a skateboard, but you can also get, for example, boxes where they could add things to a box, to make their gift box, if you like, or whatever the case may be. So there's a range of other add-ons you can use to extend the functionality. Automate Woo does a lot of the automation for you. So thank you emails, confirmation emails, and that sort of thing. You do need to pay for them. Most of them are a cost per year. So they're relatively cost effective because of that. Okay, so that's e-commerce in a nutshell. If you have any questions about that, maybe you can send me an email after this, because I do have a video presentation, a pre-recorded video that I'm trying to get to you on SEO, and I know that it's quite a long one, so I'm going to quickly skip through this. So email marketing, I think, is important to do no matter what platform you're on, because it's personalized marketing right down to the user level, product level. So according to Forbes magazine, it provides the highest return on your investment dollar in terms of marketing. So I'm just going to quickly show you some of the plugins that are available here for email marketing. So what you're going to need to do is choose your email marketing platform, and then you want to probably integrate that with your website so you can use forms and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to show you briefly some of the ones available. You can see, so there's Sendinblue, which is very good, MailPoet, but basically I don't need to show you this. Basically HubSpot, all of the email marketing platforms will integrate with your WordPress website. So very, very flexible from that regard. And you can see lots of pages in terms of integrating your email. It might be forms for collecting emails or different email platforms. So yeah, definitely maybe recommend having a look at that in your own right. Just quickly, some of the ones that I often recommend. MailerLite is a fantastic package. It's like MailChimp, but provides even more functionality, and you don't need to pay until you've got 2,000 subscribers. And then you've got ones like GetResponse and ActiveCampaign, which are, very powerful tools. Just briefly on some of the, what you need to do to start paying, essentially. So these are the free plans. So MailChimp and MailerLite, quite high subscriber limit. Sorry, I think I said 2,000 for MailerLite, and then your monthly email sends before you even need to start paying. So yeah, definitely have a look at some of those. It definitely is worthwhile. And normally once you do that, you'd need to install that plugin. So in this particular scenario, it's just Omnisend. I've signed up to Omnisend. I've downloaded the plugin. They'll give me an API I need to copy. And then what you basically do is go to your WordPress website, copy that, go to your WordPress website and paste that in the section where it says to paste that when you go into that plugin. So it's as simple as that. Then you can start to insert forms and add email subscribers to lists and do all sorts of other things. And then they'll usually start off with some sort of action. So create a workflow or start to build a list, essentially. So social media marketing, once again, it's just about getting those social signals between your website and your social channels. So feeds, cross-posting, shares and likes. And there's a lot of different reviews, for example, your shop, a lot of different plugins that you can use to enable this. So whether it's a product feed to feed your products to Google Shopping or your Facebook shop or any sort of thing like that, definitely worthwhile. So product feeds are important, and you should probably, if you have a Facebook Commerce Manager account or a Google Merchant Center account, you need one of these to feed your products to those. There are things like Social Snap, which is quite a good sort of all-in-one social media plugin. The Smash Balloon for providing feeds, like an Instagram feed for putting on your website, for example. And then there's tools like Buffer, which aren't really related to WordPress, but just to allow you to do some of that social media posting and schedule some of those posts. Now, SEO on WordPress, there's a lot of good SEO plugins available as well. So once again, just having a quick look, search SEO, and there's 3 really good ones, really, I would recommend. Yoast is one of them. All-in-one SEO is also good. Rank Math, and SEO Press. Those four. So you will need an account. Well, you don't need an account. You will need that plugin, and then you'll need to install that on your site. They do a great job just to guide you and help you optimize your site around SEO. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what you need to do for SEO. So site structure is important, making sure you've got that sort of sorted and it's logical, but you then need to optimize or identify some keywords that you can use so that you can, for each page, essentially each product, each category page, for example, and you need to then optimize your content using that keyword around that keyword on each of those pieces of content. Security and performance I've talked about already. It is an SEO basic thing that you need to do. Links, you need to have links within your website and from outside your website. So we'll talk briefly about that before I go, and then also think about your local SEO. So I'm just going to show you how you do. Now this is that video recording I was showing you here. So I'm just going to show you how you can optimize your site. It's really easy. That's why I want you to see this before you go. So this is an e-commerce site. It's a jacket, as you can see. I've got quite a bit of detail on there already. So some bullet points, some nice photos, which is half the battle. I just want to make it more optimal. So I'm just going to show you how you might do that. And even if you don't have any information on your site, what you need to do to optimize your site around, for search engines. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is edit the product. So we're going to edit that. And when we edit the product, we have access to all of this, as well as the SEO plugin, which I'll show you in a second. So that's what it's called, a hooded jacket. There's the information I've got. Some of it's quite useful, like sizes, really good photos. And down the bottom, you've got Yoast, which is that section there. I will show you that in a bit more detail, and a short description down the bottom. So that's everything we need to work on. So the first thing is I would have gone away and identified what the keyword is that I want to use for this particular product. Keyword should be like 3 to 5 words in a phrase. So I'm just going to simply change this to camouflage hooded jacket for men. Now, that's the title of the page. It's also the keyword. I want to also put that keyword in a few other places, including the URL. So I'm going to put it in there and click OK. Remember, if you do change the URL, you've got to redirect the old one to the new one. Then the content. So what I want is some, decent description of the product. Firstly, I want a title. So I'm going to put the title in there, even though you'll find that I didn't need to do this, but I put it in there and called that heading 1. Really what I need is a heading 2 in there. But anyway, I've done that for now. And then what I need is a description. So let's assume I've gone away and I've written a description for this particular product. Now I'm going to just go away and paste that in a second into that description. Okay, so I'm just going to paste it in there, paste. And now there's quite a good description in there. There's enough of a description that I can include that keyword in there at least a couple of times. So I've put it in there and I've made that bold. And then I've also put it down the back here. I'm going to also make that bold. So search engines are not that smart. We need to tell them what the keyword is. And what they're doing now is building a picture about what your website is about. So there's a few other places you need to put that keyword. Just deleting, tidying up a bit there, leaving some of that there. So now what I'm going to do, just copy the keyword again. I sort of just want to make sure I've got that copied. Now I'm going to go to a few places. I'm going to go to Yoast. Sorry. Going to go to Yoast and just paste it in there where it says, what's the keyword phrase? What's the focus key phrase for this page? So I'm going to paste that in there, and immediately you'll get a little smiley face, green, red, or amber. At the moment it's amber. Yeah, really I should have kept that as it was. So camouflage hooded jacket is my main keyword, And down the bottom there, it gives you a bit of a preview. This is your meta title and your meta description, and you can edit that. These ones have put some presets in there. I recommend doing it yourself, but I'll show you how to do that shortly. But ideally, you want to have your keyword in there. In this case, it's in the title, so it is in there. And then I can sort of analyze my SEO. It'll give me this red, green, amber. So you work through the amber ones and the red ones until you've removed them all. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do this really quickly. I might run out of time, but before I do that, there's some things I need to do. So I need to make sure that that keyword, well, firstly, I'm going to copy the description, and I'm going to take that and put that down in the short description down the bottom down there. Sorry if I'm going all over the place here, but you could see how you could probably do this in one go, though. Just putting a title in there. Okay, now I'm just going to try and squeeze through this a little bit here. What you wanted to then do is you want to go to each of the images and put your alt text in there. So this is the alternative text. Now, I should have, for some reason, I misread that. I read it as camouflage hooded jacket for men. I should have pasted the keyword in there, but I don't. So I just assume that that keyword is right, which is wrong. It should be camouflage hooded jacket for men. So you'd paste that keyword in each of your images. And once you've done that, it's really just about maybe adding some links to that text. So I've got a link to the t-shirts page. This is upselling and cross-selling, if you like, and also giving search crawlers the ability to understand how your site's all interconnected. Boots, I'm going to put a link there to the boots. So I've done that. Then really what it's about is just copying that, going right down to the bottom, and I'm going to just quickly fix my meta title and meta description. So I'm going to paste the description that I just copied from up there into here. So I've just pasted that into there, just abbreviated it a little bit. Eventually I'll get rid of those presets in there, put in some salesy type things that people might want to know about. So it's a sale on, or afterpay available, or free shipping Australia-wide, or it's Australian made. And that's really what your meta title and meta description is about trying to sell your link. So once you're on a search results page, you want to make sure that people click on your link. And this is what your meta title and meta description is about. And once you've done all of this, you'll see you'll get it will give you the little green thumbs up at every point of this. You can see you get a green bar there. I've got a red bar at the moment, so I need to fix that. It's a little bit long. Now it's a little bit short. Anyway, it's just a matter of fiddling around with that. And once you've done that, and you can see by the time I finish this video, I do get the green arrow, the green traffic light. You can see it at the top there, or the green smiley face. So it might take you, this one was a little bit of mucking around because I was trying to keep you in mind as the viewer. But if you just do this as part of your process, it should maybe take, maybe half an hour if you're including it as, maybe 15 minutes if it's just a part of the process of adding a product or adding a page. Okay, so that's SEO and WordPress. Hopefully that provides some sort of value for you there. Just very quickly, some other plugins that you might want to use. There's some Google ones that I quickly mentioned here. So there's Sitekit by Google. So that's for your analytics, your search console and that sort of thing. There's a range of other ones there, like product feeds, like I said. So you might want to review those in your own time, reviews and ratings. So you can include your Google reviews on your website. Google My Business auto-publish, so you can automatically publish posts to your Google My Business. So it might be your blog posts are automatically posted to Google My Business, for example. So there's a lot of different ones there, Google Tag Manager, etc., etc. So have a look around and see what ones you might want to use to provide that extra functionality to your site. Just very quickly going to touch on blogging. You should try and do blogging because it's one of the strengths of WordPress. The reason why you should consider doing blogging, because if you're doing one of two things, answering a question in the way of your blog post, or you're providing a solution, maybe 10 ways to do this, particularly if it's a list, you're going to find that those blog posts will not only rank, but attract traffic to your particular site. So just to give you an example, I wrote one the other day for Business Station, and it was about how to rank on Google for SEO. Now that went to page 1, and we were competing against the likes of Google, WordStream, Wix, all these other, multinational organizations. It's since dropped down to page 2. Now I could go back to that blog post and optimize it a little bit more, add some content, maybe modify the header slightly, add some more links in there, and republish that, and maybe get it back up to page 1 again. So it is a great way to rank and attract traffic to your site. And WordPress is the king or queen of blogging. So it is definitely the platform of choice, gives you the most flexibility. So that's blogging. You can have a look at the different templates available for your blogging posts. It's really dependent on your particular theme that you're using. So like I said, and just to finish off that particular discussion, so if I search for, say, best handbag, the results that I get is this particular result here. So Google assumes that I'm looking for a list of best handbags. So it will come back with a whole range of different responses, all of which are blog posts. There's not a single website static page. They're all blog post pages. So if I can just get to what I'm talking about there. Anyway, there is the example. If you are looking for blog posts, ideas for blog posts, there's Answer the Public as an example. You could use that answerthepublic.com to get ideas for questions that people might be asking that you can write blog posts about. Finally, just if you're looking for forms, there's also forms as well as lots of form plugins. WP Forms is probably my preferred option there in terms of just building different forms for different things, contacts, collecting email lists, all sorts of other ways, other things you might want to do. There's live chat plugins as well that you can use, social sharing, insights in terms of analytics, insert headers and footers where you need to insert different code on your website, for example, such as analytics. Whew, that's it for my presentation today. Thank you for staying with me. Sorry if I took a bit longer than I said I was going to. So a couple of things, if you want any information on any of the things I sort of talked about today, there is a link there. You might just want to write that down. Sorry, I can't paste this into the chat function. I didn't get a copy of that before I started. So just make sure you get the uppercase and lowercase right there, and that'll give you access to some of these things I talked about today. There's also my email address there. If you want to ask me a question, I'm happy to answer any questions in any way that I can, or at least give you the advice that I can. Now, if you're not aware of the Digital Solutions Program, you might have seen that logo through my presentation. This is an Australian government initiative. It's a program to build skills and capabilities in small businesses in Australia. We deliver it in Queensland, Northern Territory, and Western Australia. So if you are interested and you're not part of this program already, I would recommend that you do, have a look at that. It helps in areas, those 4 areas in particular. So social media, digital marketing, online security, websites and selling online, and using small business software. It costs $44 for 7 hours. And to register or find out more, just go to businessstation.link/register, or you can go to businessstation.com.au for more information on that particular program. Okay, I'm just going to go back to that page in case you didn't have that link there. And otherwise, I'm going to say thank you for joining me today. I hope you got some value out of that. And good luck with your businesses. I hope you do very well. And we might come across each other again, either in an advisory session or maybe one of my other workshops. Thank you, Wendy, and thank you all the other participants that are on there today, Kerry Ann as well, and other people that are watching this as a recorded version. So thank you, everyone.